Today, we're excited to have Eli Noam joining us here on Digging into the Future. Eli is a professor at Columbia University. Has been there as a professor since 1976, teaching in the early days about early telecommunications, and then obviously as the evolution of the internet and artificial intelligence has been a leading scholar for our industry for almost 50 years. So a very, very great honor for us to have Eli with us today. Eli, welcome to Digging into the Future. Eli, I think just to start off, maybe give us, one of the things that we spend a lot of time, you were recently with us in Washington, D.C., and we're talking about a lot of the evolution of the regulators in the United States and how to deal with sort of the new technologies that are coming into place. And maybe if you could just kind of paint the landscape of sort of how you see the world changing in the last, 5 or 6 years as it relates to things like AI coming into networks and how that's impacting regulators and how regulators think about these things. In your mind, how would you characterize what's been going on in the world?
Well, AI, of course, has been around for easily 50 years as a concept, as a term. It has its ups, its downs, but it's often characterized by hype. The most recent and extraordinary hype cycle started about 2 years ago or so with ChatGPT, and that kind of really brought it to the forefront. But almost immediately, people saw it as a threat rather than as an opportunity. And they elaborated on a whole range of dystopic scenarios, bias and job losses and privacy and digital divides and all kinds of things. And fundamentally, they're correct. But they exaggerate it usually. There are some people who think that AI was going to end up running the world, starting wars, starting economic crises, and keeping us humans in a subordinate position. And we could be lucky if they will keep us around as pets. But perhaps we're just a little bit ahead with our fears. It's a natural thing for human to fear kind of other species taking over. But if you think about it, the opportunities of such a technology, of making society smarter, of making individuals smarter, of making institutions more efficient, of raising productivity, of saving energy as well as, of course, wasting energy, but also saving energy, is so extraordinary that we should focus on the other side of the coin. And right now, we haven't done that. And because of all these fears that have been out there, of course, the hyperventilating media coverage of the fears and politicians coming into the game and then government regulators following the politicians. And so we have around the world, starting perhaps in Brussels, but also in California and also in other countries, emerging legislations, regulations that will try to deal with future and often hypothetical rather than real fears, often done in ways that are not specific to a problem, but more general about everything, as if AI is a kind of an easily targeted industry. And so we are maybe kind of throwing out the baby with the bathwater, as they say, instead of kind of focusing on the opportunities kind of being governed mostly by fear right now.
One of the things with AI that people are talking a lot about, and it's funny, I've been sitting here and doing a lot of the work for the PTC coming up in the weeks ahead. And we've talked a lot about AI for 2 days. And one of the issues that many people talk about is personal data and the role of AI, because and whether personal data can stay protected in a world where AI is very active, or do societies have to go to a Chinese style model where there's gateways to protect data or data sovereignty in a country, and will that be the model of the future? And there's actually a number of folks, here I'm in Hong Kong having this discussion with you, that were talking about the fact that maybe the Chinese system is a better system for managing the internet and even in the new world of AI by managing data, because it actually creates gateways for which blocks intruders from coming in and accessing information. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, there is that possibility that some governments will impose kind of these gatekeepers. The personalized AI, which I see being provided not by the individual, because for the individual kind of to start programming these things in is kind of clearly impossible. But there will be providers, private providers, that will do this as a business or on a nonprofit basis. They will be providing you the personal AI tools. And in some countries, it could be mandated that those tools will be provided only by the government and controlled by the government and supervised and monitored by the government. Technology, of course, can, in some cases, help to bypass these governmental controls. But it probably takes some doing, and many people don't have the sophistication, and the penalties might be severe. So yes, there is a potential, an authoritarian potential to these technologies, because more and more information does become digital and therefore controllable, and people can and governments can monitor it. So yes, there is that danger.
Yeah, and I think, well, does that defeat the purpose of AI, or is it because that means that there's sort of what's behind the walls and then what's seeable by everyone? Does that start to limit the amount of information that actually an AI model can actually access? Right? Does that impact its ability to operate?
I think that the AI controlled by governments, imposed, can be programmed in such a way that the algorithm will not let in certain information and exclude it, and in fact promote other information. There's potential for governmental powers and controls, but it also gives individuals a tool to bypass them. And done correctly and done in ways that are outside of governmental reach will actually make it possible for people to access and to find information that they will seek or that they believe is more correct than the governmental information that they receive.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because, I mean, obviously, we've all lived in a world where the internet was pretty much unchecked, right? The only country that really had a gateway was China, right? I mean, the reality was pretty much most of the countries outside of China, in reality, you could access information in those countries, and they could access, so you had pretty much a free-flowing environment, right?
It is part of the issues with digital communications more generally, and with packet-switched information. Every packet has its address and its recipient and destination, and so it is monitorable more than information was before. This is not AI specific. AI gives an additional tool to deal with it, both positively and negatively. But the problem is that digital communications are, in a way, kind of easier targets for governments to deal with than analog information, and certainly than the printed information, because it is so easily copied and analyzed and saved and stored.
Just a couple questions before we finish here. Eli, you've always been you've talked a lot about digital divide over the past decades or two in terms of how you make telecommunications and communications capabilities available to all the masses around the world. Do you think AI helps that problem? And if so, how does it help that problem or help solve that problem?
I think that AI can help alleviate many of society's problems. And the digital divide has been talked about, and it's good that we talk about it because it gives us some sensitivity to the issues. But we should also kind of recognize and pat ourselves on the shoulders on what has been achieved. Would anybody 20 or so years ago would have believed that today kind of 6 billion or so people have in their hands, in their pockets, devices that connects them to the entire world, phones and smartphones with computing power that is just extraordinary, connecting them to the world not only by voice but also to data, to the internet. And so we have kind of leapfrogged a kind of in extraordinary ways, unpredicted ways, the digital divide already. And every new technology, such as AI, has early users, early adopters who are kind of ahead of the crowd, and then richer countries and people in richer countries are likely to be there first too. But very soon thereafter, the rest of the world is also catching up. And I think the same thing will happen with the AI. The richer countries and early adopters will spearhead the technology that then will spread like wildfire around the world. As I mentioned, the distribution costs and the marginal costs are fairly low. This will be easily accessible around the world, personally as well as institutionally. And I have no doubt that the technology will be in the devices of people around the world in the same way that applications such as search engines are today.
No, it's fascinating, and it is good to hear, and I think you give a very good and positive view of AI, and we're looking forward to having you in along with us in Hawaii to talk about this with some of the other experts, and it should be a very, very interesting discussion. But Eli, thank you so much for joining us for a few minutes here, and we really appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to hearing you talk more when we see you in Hawaii.
Okay, this has been a delightful conversation. I enjoyed it, and it got me thinking. Every question gets me to think about some more and to add a chapter or two to things that I've been writing or an article. And that's, in a way, one of the functions of events such as the PTC in Hawaii, is not only to bring people together, but out of that combination to have more, to bring together a critical mass, and out of that critical mass, who knows what will happen.
Exactly.
And so I really look forward to joining your audience and participants.
Thank you very much, Eli. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me join.